Hey there, I'm Mr. Terry. I'm a high school history teacher. Welcome back to another History Teacher X video. All right, it's still Napoleon season with the Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix movie. And in a very timely manner, History Matters put out another video, and this is about Napoleon. And it actually asks a question that I get asked a lot as a teacher in my classes. And it's this: why was Napoleon exiled instead of executed? They exiled him twice. So I'm interested what History Matters has to say about this. The original video is down below. Please support them. They make the best, very small little history videos. And let's get started. Here we go.
After his defeat, Napoleon Bonaparte was exiled to Elba by the victorious coalition powers.
Right off the
As you'll
border.
know, he came back, and after his second defeat he was exiled yet again, but this time further away. But given
Correct.
what he put the coalition allies through and the risk he posed by still remaining alive, why was Napoleon only exiled instead of being permanently dealt with? So,
By the way, what would be your understanding going into this about why doing this? The thing I hear about is, you don't execute enemy leaders and stuff like that. And is that just about proper behavior or something like this? Because that's not necessarily the norm in society. All right, 1814. Let's see what they have to say.
in 1814, the coalition had marched on Paris, and the French Senate declared Napoleon deposed.
Yep.
Napoleon wanted to keep fighting, but his generals said no and demanded that he leave. And because Prussia, Russia, and Austria just wanted the war to be over, they agreed to let Napoleon enter exile, on the condition that he renounced the French throne. He eventually.
So you do see differences of the different exiles. One is a little bit more internal, and I guess that makes more sense. When it's, people, someone of your own country, and he still had some popularity with it. But the second one is where I'm going to be interested to see their take, because that wasn't done internally.
Eventually agreed and was then allowed to leave for Elba. This was much to the annoyance of the British, who wanted to imprison him because they saw his entire reign as illegitimate.
But they had a
as we all
chance.
know, he returned to France a year
After
later.
Waterloo.
Upon his return, he was given an army and fought the coalition again before losing.
Yeah.
So why was it then that, in spite of the threat that Napoleon's existence was, why didn't the Allies 100% guarantee that he wasn't going to be a problem again? Well, the great powers mostly wanted different things for Napoleon. The British were very much against execution, because its government believed that the restored Bourbon dynasty was fragile. If Napoleon...
Oh, it's still the power of monarchy, right? You got to remember, other countries hated the French Revolution. Other monarchies hated it because those same arguments could be used against their own authority and their own standing in their own monarchies.
Because its government believed that the restored Bourbon dynasty was fragile. If Napoleon were to be given a free trip to the afterlife, there were fears that those still loyal to him would rise up and potentially plunge France into a civil war, which would need dealing with, and Britain didn't feel like it. Austria and Russia were both mixed. There was a genuine desire for vengeance, but given that Napoleon's imperial coronation had been given the blessing of the Pope, the idea of ending his life was seen as a step too far.
What do you think about I need to look more at the arguments about, the Pope, of course, being there in his coronation. But we all know the whole, he crowned himself emperor, not going to necessarily do the Charlemagne route where the Pope is going to, pope him. I mean, crown him. What do you think the Pope's motivations were behind, I guess, being a part of this? Do you think it was more under duress, or just truly thought that he was worthy of the title of emperor? What do you think about that? Put it down in the comments.
Also, both nations had the blessing of the Pope, the idea of ending his life was seen as a step too far. Also, both nations had previously allied with Napoleon, and executing someone who a few years prior was your ally wasn't a good look. And the Russians wanted to keep him alive as a threat to the rest of Europe, whereas the Prussians had no such qualms with execution, and its generals were openly calling for Napoleon's head. Bonaparte's escape from exile had solidified this position, and many Prussians believed that Napoleon was capable of returning from anywhere, except the grave. The Prussian king didn't share this opinion, which is why the calls for his head went nowhere. Of course, all of this squabbling
Even
was
the second
irrelevant,
time, huh?
because Napoleon had cleverly handed himself over to the British. Napoleon knew that they were going to be the most lenient, and he believed that he would be allowed to live out the rest of his days in the UK as a free man.
In the Napoleon movie, I guess this might be a little bit of a spoiler, but you get that feeling from him that like he did not see like he wasn't treating it seriously, that he handed himself and was, you know, under the arrest basically by the British. Like he didn't take it seriously, that it would be like, you know, he'd go to the gallows or something. It didn't take it seriously. They definitely portrayed that in the film. Do you think that was his mindset? Like he was that like delusional? I don't know, confident?
This was obviously wrong, but the British weren't willing to hand him over for execution, and so he knew that at least he'd live. Given his previous escape, though, Napoleon wasn't going to be given anywhere to rule, and so instead he was exiled to St Helena. Here,
Other side
as
of the
he would
planet.
remain here under house arrest until his death in 1821. I hope you enjoyed this episode, with a special thanks to my patrons, James Bisonet.
All right, I got questions for you before we go. So I guess in modern conflicts, we see different things happen to rulers of defeated nations. Sometimes, again, I guess they're just deposed. Sometimes they do go into exile. A lot of times, you know, now when you look at modern instances, you'll see like war crime trials or something. And do you think that would have been something legitimate for Napoleon? Would you have those kind of arguments for like seeing Napoleon as a war criminal if you were one of these other countries? But overall, to me, I still like I kind of get it, but I also still don't, as much as I hear about these arguments about why exiling instead of like executing him or like throw him in prison, you know, like an actual like prison for life. But instead he essentially with Elba and St Helena, even though he dies in St Helena, it's like all right, here's your own island with servants and stuff. And the second time it's like, here's your own tropical island, and again you're gonna have servants, and it's like a nice retirement. And is that worthy of something? The Napoleonic Wars killed millions of people. And do you think there's just something different about Napoleon, of how these leaders viewed this enemy? Is there a part of him that liked him? Is it that you know, understood him, and there wasn't that personal hostility? It's still a little bit confusing to me. But I know a lot of you research Napoleon and talk about Napoleon a lot more. So I'd actually love to have your feedback on that. Put it down in the comments there. What do you think about kind of how they broke it down in this video? And yeah, let's talk about it. All right, with that, we'll see y'all next time.